Yes, already been a month since I've completed my foundation course in 3D design and architecture from UAL. And after chilling for all these weeks, I'm finally ready to share with you guys the type of work that I've produced for my final project. So that if you're planning to do a foundation course yourself, you can see and have an insight of the type of work that you can produce by the end of the course. Before sharing with you guys the work that I've done, let me explain to you the project. So for the final term here in the foundation course, we are requested to design and write our own project, so we can focus on whatever we are interested in. And I decided to design a youth center slash library and study space for young people, mainly teenagers between the age of 12 to 17. And that's to allow them to have a space where they can hang around with their friends and also have a place where they can study in peace. And the main issue that I wanted to tackle was the issue of knife crime among young people, because unfortunately here in London there is a really high amount of knife crime and gang violence among young people. So I was thinking that if they have a lot of space such as youth centers and community centers where they can hang around with their friends instead of hanging around by themselves in the streets without much supervision, it would be better for them and also hopefully decrease the amount of knife crime. So I have to look at the slides down here on my laptop. So the first slide is secondary research, and that's how I started my project. I gathered around more than 50 images. Obviously I couldn't include all of the 50 images in the presentation, so I selected the main ones that influenced my design the most. And as you can see, there is a lot of rectangular and geometric shapes, and that's because I was initially inspired by the movie Interstellar and this specific scene where the protagonist finds himself in this space which is called the Tesseract. And I was just really interested in this three-dimensional space that they created, that I started looking more and more into related images, and I found this library in Mexico City which kinda looked like this space in the movie Interstellar. And from there I got the idea of designing a library, and then ended up with the idea of designing a library and youth center which has a very geometrical and rectangular form. Primary and site research. Here are the images of my potential sites. I selected London because it's just easier for me to visit any place and also talk to the locals. Whereas if I selected any other place abroad or outside of London, obviously I couldn't go there and visit the place in person. Form finding. From here I got so many experimentations. So I did my usual quick 3D models, and then drew them to try to expand them into drawings to see the scale and how I could manipulate the form in sketchings. More form finding. I have more experimentation with form finding, and this was a task that we were given in campus to do at least three 3D models, which we didn't have to think about anything, just be experimental. We didn't have to think about the site or the user, just experiment with material. Again, more form finding. In this task we were asked to choose one of the words that we were given, and I selected movement, I think, and structure. So we had to do a model which sort of followed the movement of the people. So if someone, for example, decided to do shopping mall, the movement of people there is more fluid. So they might make a model which is very, there is a lot of movement there, there is a lot of flow. But because I decided to do a youth center and a library, I decided to just focus on the library section. And in libraries usually people walk in a very, not very fluid, not very movement way, like it's very straight. So that's why these models are very straight and geometrical. Again, more form finding, just experimenting with composition. Site model, I'm not really happy with this outcome, it could have been better, but it is what it is, man. Site plus user and materiality. The first collage here, I kinda messed it up, I think. I just rushed it so much, and I did it in the final day. And it's to show the user. So the user is mainly young teenagers. The main issue that I wanted to tackle is the issue of knife crime among young people, and I've got some images of the site. And then on the right side I have a shipping container, because this is the main material that I wanted to use for my structure. And this is because shipping containers, I found out that they are pretty cheap to buy and also work with, and it's also a material which is heavily used by people that make tiny homes. And since I wanted to design a youth center, I wanted to be as cost efficient as possible, and that's because here in London, not just London but around the UK, I think thousands of youth centers they've been closed down because of the lack of funding. And it would have been ironic for me to propose a really fancy and nice looking youth center which cost a lot to run, because as I said, most youth centers they've been closing down because they don't have enough fundings. Again, back to form finding. I think this is the last one, I promise. And then the final model. The final model, it's really big. It's the biggest model that I've done, and I wanted to really work with something and produce something which is pretty large in scale, because most of the work that I've done throughout the year was pretty small, as I've done it at home mostly. And how it would work is that the first shipping container is the entrance and reception area where people go and register. The second floor, which is the long horizontal one, it's the study space and library where kids can go there and study. And the last floor is the relaxing area and cafe where they can go relax with their friends, have a cafe. And as you can see, there is also a rooftop where I was planning to install a gym and just have a place where you can relax as much as possible. And the two containers on the back are the stairs and the lift. This is the final slide, the collage and illustrations. The illustrations are really bad. I've done them in the last 2 days or even the last day. As you can see, the illustration on the bottom right is not finished, and that's something that I regret during the project. I focused so much on the research aspect and deciding what programs I wanted my youth center to have, instead of doing much digital stuff. I left that for the final week and ended up just doing it in the final 2 days and rushing all the digital collages and digital work. So yeah, that's all that I've done for my final project. I hope you got an insight of the type of work that you can produce by the end of a foundation course. And if you made it this far, you can go and check out this video here where I compare my experience in my foundation course with my experience in my A-levels. And I'll see you in the next one.